Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. And again, we're talking about how to keep our kids safe at school. Last couple of shows been all about gun reform. This is the show that counts. I'm here with Ricky Harrington and Richard Bogardus, and we're just going to toss out some ideas and I guess take a look at multiple choices and things to keep our kids safe. So I think this has to be broke down into two pieces to start with, like a long-term goal, because again, I think this is a society issue, right? But long-term and short-term. So let's take care of short-term right off the bat. How are we going to possibly keep insane people and violence out of our schools better than we're doing? Rick?
I don't really have the answer for that. If I had the answer for that, I would be running for
Suggest that, yeah.
The Congress or whatever. But right now, we don't have what I call the perfect reporting system that allows for the schools to report to the police to report to the state of Vermont, and if need be, the FBI and the feds. So I really think that we need to insist that our state jump on board and get onto the background check and the reporting of these incidents. As we're all fully aware of what happened in Florida, there was, originally they said 23 calls into the local sheriffs. Turned out it's more like 39. I don't care if it's 3. Right. I don't care if it's 9. What I care about is somebody should have listened to at least one time and said, we may have an issue here, we might want to investigate this. And there was a breakdown. I don't want to see that happen, and I think that's the best possible thing we can do right now, other than go into our schools and make them a harder place to get into. But that's, I think, another issue we want to talk about.
Right, yeah, and we will. Rich, what are your thoughts on the whole, just in general? What are we doing?
Well, I agree. A little more security to enter the schools probably would be a good thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not a gun guy, so I'm not a gun expert, but this is obviously a far-reaching, multifaceted problem. We got to look at why this is happening. Not just how.
Multiple causes, multiple solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is a society thing. I mean, what we really want to protest is violence and crazy people, right?
Right, and look what happened up in Fairhaven, where this didn't fall through the cracks.
Right.
Somebody called and said, this guy, I don't know if you read the 33-page manifesto of this kid, but it's interesting,
wow.
To say the least.
Yeah.
He was planning to do what for months, way before the Florida thing, to do the same thing, and they caught it before it happened. So.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, one of the big things that I think instigates a lot of this is the media. And again, here we are 2 weeks after Florida happened, and it's still every day. It's in the banner every day. It's on the news every single day. We talk about it. It's almost glorified, right? We're making these people celebrities. It's exactly what they want to do. I think that sets it up for the next crazy person. I don't know if there's some sort of, just from the family perspective, respect for the family and rights and the grief process and everything that goes on, I would think there'd be some sort of a media guideline where, I mean, it's news, it's newsworthy, it's a big news story, so it should be printed, but again, I go back to...
It sensationalizes it, so...
It does sensationalize it.
And we don't know the effects of that. But.
It doesn't. People watch the news for it. That's part of it, too. There's a profit piece here from the media companies because it sells their TV show or their magazine, right? But, I don't know. I think there should be a written article. No names, even, for that matter. Don't make this get into a celebrity. Don't paste his picture all over. If we're going to have a media frenzy, wait for the prosecution to say, hey, look, this is what happens. When this type thing goes down. What do you guys, what do you think about that? Are we, a lot of people, I can hear the other side of this, well, you just want to hide the gun death, right, or the gun incident, but that's not what I'm trying to do.
No, that's, and without naming sources, but the television show that I watch was purposely leaving the kid's name out or the young man's name out, and it was because they didn't want to give him credit. They didn't want to give him fame. And as time went on, you could almost see it like, well, we got to, I guess, release this. And of course, once all the media just started releasing it, they had, I won't say they didn't have a choice, but they figured what the heck's the difference? Everybody knows who it is now. But they were actually, I think, making an attempt not to give him any credit whatsoever. And I think that's a good thing. I'm with you. You're not going to bury the fact that 17 children got killed or 17 people got killed.
Right.
But why give him the credit for it?
Right. Well, that's what I said. It's horrific news, but I think we got to get a grip on it from a media standpoint. It just fuels the next one. The way I see it, anyway. I mean, we know from statistics, every time we show a teenage suicides go up, and I think it's the same principle as far as these mental breakdowns. How about mental illness? That's a big topic right now. What do we think about the mental? There's 60% less mental institutions in the country today than in the 1950s. Do we think there's 60% less crazy people?
Doubtful.
It's very doubtful. There's 60% less, but they closed down the mental institutes. Again, I think budgetary reasons, but I think also the fact that I'm not sure they really knew what to do with them, short of try to fit them back into society. And the problem I'm having with this whole discussion about mental and is if you went and I'd say do a survey or talk to doctors or whatever, I think you would find a very high amount of people who take pills for anxiety, take pills because
Absolutely.
they're depressed, they take pills because they have bipolar. These are all mental conditions, and there's a lot of people that live every day with it, never have a problem, never have a slightest inclination of buying a gun and shooting up the town.
Mm-hmm.
And my problem is if we're going to go down this road, I'm a little nervous with saving my right to bear guns to somebody's right to privacy.
Right.
So I think it enters into the HIPAA Act, and that's where I'm having a little bit of issue with it. If somebody can tell me it doesn't and change my mind, I'm more than happy to.
That's the scary part for me is who decides where the line is, right? And I'll use that kid in Florida, right? Honestly, I can't think of a constitutional reason to take his gun away, other than if one of the, family services or the school or some level, the FBI, if they did their job, they followed up and they, if a doctor at that point said, this gentleman's a danger to himself or other people, then they take it away. But making that call is, you're talking about taking somebody's right away, right to defend themselves, right to their gun. So, and again, it's a reactive society, right? We almost have to wait till they do something before it's a crime. The same with the mental illness. I mean, I think it's good that we can't force people into mental treatment. I mean, we can under extreme circumstances. But I don't want people ganging up on me and saying, and it's the same thing. Have you seen this Kevin Hoyt's Facebook account? Like, he's posting guns all the time. He's an obvious serial killer of animals. He's showing kids how to play with guns. Like, this guy's out of control. He needs to go on a list, right? And that's my fear, right? Martin Luther King Jr. was, a gun-toting. He was pro-gun, pro-life, pro-constitution, but they arrested him for that. So who makes that list is the scary part of the thing. And that's with the screening you're talking about. PTSD, how many people out there, you're a victim of some sort of life trauma, rape, abuse, something. Now you can't have the right to defend yourself because you have PTSD, or our soldiers, is another thing. Back to gun reform a little bit, Ricky. You said something about the age when you were...
Well, and in full disclosure, because I really do think that it's best to know where people are coming from when they start stating their opinions and whatever. I am a lifelong Life NRA member. I'm also a Patreon member. I'm also Gun Owners of America Life member. So you're naturally going to think, well, this guy is going to do anything and everything he can to make sure they don't play with the second Bill of Rights or amendment. But that said, I do, and probably they'll throw me out of both of these organizations, but I do think there should be some compromise, and that is, I'm not saying a man, boy, whatever, can't have a gun and go hunting. Whatever age is permissible by the state of Vermont, he should be able to. However, I don't really see the big reason for anybody under 21 buying a gun. And I've heard the I'll say explanation. Well, she's a 20-year-old girl and she just got beat up by her ex-husband, and you know, I know you can come up with all sorts of examples, but you don't think maybe she's got a mom or a dad who will actually go and buy the gun for her?
What about our military kids, though? What about our 18-year-old guy that joins the service? We're giving him a rifle and sending him to foreign lands to shoot at other people with guns, but he can't have a gun here?
All the more reason. You know what? He doesn't have to go buy a gun. The military will provide it for him.
Right.
And if he does have a need for it, I'm sure there's a lot of generals or people above him that are certainly older that would sign on the dotted line to get this young man a gun. And I think that's the important thing here, is that by making your mom, your dad, your sisters, brothers, somebody 21 or older signing on a dotted line.
Like a cosigner.
Exactly, and so there's a little bit more protection there. I don't see as a problem at all.
Gotcha. And this is coming from Ricky Harrington, who is so right-winged. Takes him an hour and a half to get here from Glossenbury because he flies in circles.
I do.
That's the way it goes, right? And again, I have to agree that the difference between an 18-year-old male, especially mindset, and a 30-year-old male is night and day. But again, I'm not willing to budge at all on my Second Amendment rights. I don't think between 18 and 21 makes much of a difference. I think if a 20-year-old wants to do this, he's going to go steal his dad's guns. It's not going to do anything except stop innocent people. The problem with all gun reform, there's two problems with all of these restrictions, bans, whatever we're talking about. Number one, there's 300 million guns in the U.S., and there's no way we're going to get rid of them. I'm a good guy, and I'm not getting rid of mine. I'm sure the bad guy is going to be the last.
What I heard. I heard 150, but 300.
Yeah, 300 roughly, right? So that's number one. The guns are here. This is the USA. We're not going to get rid of them. Like I said, bad guys are last. And number two is we're talking about laws, and this is for law-abiding people that follow the law. So if I'm going to, commit a crime, I'm not going to go to a gun shop to get a gun. I'm going to steal one, or I'm going to get one from a hoodlum buddy. I don't care.
One thing that people don't really consider is that when you enact these type of laws, you are enhancing the black market.
Absolutely.
And what does a black market do? As we all know, it creates violence. It creates gun violence.
Yeah. And that's shown again from.
So that's a double-edged sword. You got to be careful.
Yeah. Well, the historic evidence. We banned assault rifles. We banned handguns before. We've tried this in different cities and all across the country. Every time we do, it goes the opposite direction. That's why I wanted to look at some other ideas. Let's talk about guards again. Are we at the point with our school system where should we have like full security assessment going on at Mount Anthony right now? Should we have a guard at the beginning? Should we have the teachers armed? I mean, what are we doing about securing the building like we were talking about? What are your thoughts on any of that? Rick, I'll let you go again.
I think that a guard is a great resource, and that's what they call resources. However, and I'm just going from, I think, what a would-be person who's going to enter the school would do, is they see a person sitting at the door in a uniform with a gun.
Right, he's a target.
He's a target.
I agree.
He's going to be taken out first and foremost. However, I would think that anybody with, and again, we're going back, is a guy mentally deranged, or does he have a little common sense left, would kind of step back and say, however, there might be the phys ed teacher, there might be the counselor in there who has a handgun, a concealed weapon. I don't know who's in it. Matter of fact, in the Career Development Center, our superintendent is an ex-town policeman. He certainly is capable of having one and handling one.
Right.
And nobody would know it.
So you're for both then?
I'm for
teachers and armed guards?
I just wish that Donald Trump wasn't quite so proactive, because he stole my thunder. I'd already been into
your ideas?
my school and asked what their thoughts were, the superintendent, and he wasn't for it per se, and that's good. I'm not saying everybody has to agree with me, but I think it's something we should discuss. We do have, in a couple of schools in Vermont, they allow to have concealed guns, and without getting off track, the biggest reason that I am for putting concealed weapons in the school is this gun-free zone doesn't work.
Right.
98% of all the
mass shootings,
since 1950. 98%.
Right, are gun-free.
Caused the gun-free zones.
It's an advertisement.
It's crazy.
It's a great place.
It is. It's a hell of an advertisement.
What do you think about armed guards, Rich?
Well, I've had a lot of people say we have a lot of ex-military people that are unemployed.
Right.
Why not give them something to do, something they would,
right.
you know.
And the argument from the left is going to be because they all suffer from PTSD,
Yeah.
which is a mental illness, and those are exactly the type of people. And again, that's the problem here is who draws the line and decides
Right.
who's right.
I also had another person say that, you know, the discussion was ex-military or ex-police officers.
Right.
She was very adamant that it should be ex-military because they're trained to kill and trained to assess and deal with that exact type of situation where the police most definitely probably aren't. So.
Right. I get the target part. If I was a bank robber, the first thing I do is take out security guards at the bank. But the other side of that is I don't rob banks because I know they have security.
Right.
Right? If there was no security, everybody would be robbing banks all the
Exactly.
time. So when we go into our courts, we're safe. When we go into certain areas, we're safe. Our schools, it wasn't President Trump, it wasn't the gun, it wasn't anybody that made our schools targets. It was those crazy people, right? The shooters. They are targets. We know that now. So let's take the target tag away. Is my
I mean, the guard would be to me is a good resource for sure. I know in Mount Anthony and the Career Development Center we do have policemen that are 20 hours in each school because the Career Development Center and Mount Anthony are tied together by bricks and block, but they're still separate schools. So I feel fortunate that we have put the money where the mouth is, I'll say, and we have hired these resource officers. It might make sense to have full-time in both schools, but we are in a unique area for Vermont because Vermont is extremely rural. That's by a lot of people's accounting, that's why we're one of the safest states. But if something is to go wrong at Mount Anthony or the CDC, I don't know the exact time, but I'd be very, very hard to believe that it's any more than 2 to 5 minutes before there'll be a town policeman right in the dooryard over there. It's because that police station is so close.
What's
and
the
there's so many
expression, though,
officers.
right? When you only got seconds, the cops will be there in minutes.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I mean, I wish we could snap our fingers and make this situation go away. So now we are all grasping at straws, and we're grasping for little bits and pieces that make this better. Because, let's face it, one of the things that Donald Trump is stating is, I'll make sure by myself that the bump stocks will be gone. Bump stocks eliminated makes probably a few people feel good, but the actual results is it's not going to mount one iota.
As far as I know, that's been used one time in all of history.
Yeah, that's all. You know what? I never knew what a bump stock was until Las
I don't
Vegas.
even know what it is.
I played with one 10 or 15 years ago, and instantly,
Right.
as soon as I shot it, I said, boy, it's only going to take one idiot.
Yeah.
And here we go. But again, it's not the gun. I blame the idiot, right? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is the shooter's fault.
Well,
Ultimately, it is.
yeah, ultimately it is, correct.
It is. All right, so I mean, what else can we possibly think of for, how about like the video game issue and the music issue and you guys think these are even worth talking about?
Well, you told me that I have a hard time getting out of Glassbury because I keep going around circles. So I think you know where I'm going to come from here. But let's face it, and I'm only going to use it as a metaphor because I really don't know how it happens in the military because I never was in the military. But if you want to learn how to fly a jetliner, you set yourself in a seat
With a computer.
with a computer,
Yeah.
and you do all this, experimenting and all this.
You can get your pilot license
Oh, absolutely.
from your living room couch.
Right,
Absolutely true.
right. And you are programmed so that when you get in the real jet, you can fly it and there's no mistakes.
Right.
Well, that's sort of what we're doing with our children when we set them down and say, here, go ahead and play this game with the guns, and hey, you shoot all these bad guys.
Yeah.
you're getting used to actually taking lives. And well, it's only a cartoon, or it's only this, or it isn't. Because these people are supposedly firing back at you in these videos and stuff. So
the desensitizing part.
Very decent.
You know, again, my argument, again, coming from the other side is, you ever see Tom and Jerry? That's what I grew up with, right? I'm a Bugs Bunny fan, Roadrunner. I've never dropped an anvil on anybody in, you know, my whole life. I have no costume, but I do see, like,
that was violence, but this is a different.
This is a different
type
kind because of the blood and gore that's associated. But again, now aren't we going back to parents again? Every one of these video games comes with a rating, right? As far as age limits and restrictions, and it's a society thing, right? Again,
it's a breakdown of society, sure. The traditional family unit. Now you have broken homes.
Right.
You know, one mother.
That's it.
Kids and working multiple jobs. You just don't have the supervision that you used to.
A huge topic.
It's going to take its toll.
We talk about all the time, Rich, is the the opioid crisis, but the drug epidemic that's going on. Do we think that plays a role here? Well, how many kids are raised by?
We're giving kids
the state
4, 5, 6 years old, psychotropic heavies. I mean, you're talking about a litany of drugs.
Right.
And we don't. They're basically experimental.
That's another.
We don't know what's going on, and then when they get 15, 16 years old, and they tell mom and dad, "I'm not taking those anymore," or just don't take them anymore. And the kid from Fairhaven,
was one of them.
Was one of them. He said, "I've secretly stopped taking my meds. I want control. I want control of who lives and who dies."
Yeah.
His words.
Wow, that's scary.
So what happens when they stop taking these drugs? You're talking side effects like psychosis, violence, suicide. It's something we need to look at, and it's buried in the media.
That's what I said. I mean, Ritalin is a lot easier than parenting, right? But all of these, and I've looked into that specifically, the connection between these drugs, either anti-anxiety, anti-depression, and there's a huge correlation. These people that are committing the mass suicide, almost all of them, are on these medications.
It's hard to figure out because of doctor-patient privilege, but and you hear it through hearsay more than anything else.
Right.
A lot of them have been on them, so. I mean, is there a correlation? I don't know for sure, but it's something that might we want to look at.
I think, again, from a whole bunch of different levels, this young man in Florida, and I know this wasn't the case, but how many people are like, their parents are gone because of drugs? And again, how much of a burden have we put on, health services and the state? How many kids is the state really raising because of this now? And even if the parents come out and they get them back, and this is turmoil for these little kids, right? So
Beaver Cleaver never wanted to go out and shoot up a school, right?
Right. Well, we just were talking in the last episode, and it wasn't much before my time. You could open the Montgomery Ward catalog and order a Thompson machine gun and have it delivered. And we didn't have these mass shootings like this. I took a gun to school. Right, that's a true story. We all had hunting rifles in the back of our pickup trucks in the parking lots, and it wasn't the society that we're dealing with, I think, today. And again, the screening piece is the really scary part for me. How do you screen for, like, where do you draw the line? Where do you almost have to wait until something is done?
You do, and what happened down in Florida was. A lot of the incidents we talk about, the 39 incidents, I think is what it's now become, were not, I won't say they weren't reportable, but they wouldn't ever go on a background check.
Right.
Background checks usually only pick up on convictions. They don't pick up on, accusations that somebody did something. I mean, you actually have to have somebody prosecuted before it actually gets onto their background checks.
And I like that, though, don't you?
Oh, I do. I agree with you.
I mean, innocent until proven guilty. Until you do something, why are we punishing you? Isn't that a concept, a fundamental of...
It is, and you're right. But I really think that in order for us to get a handle on it, the schools themselves need to keep accurate information. It'd be no different than evaluating a teacher. I mean, you evaluate them every year or every 2 years, whatever, before you give them raises or whatever. Well, the same way with these students. They should have an active file on them, and if he's been tardy, that's information you know. We've done that for years. I mean, my mother and father always got a report. Your kid didn't show up for a few days here or there, but that's one of them. But also, he was disruptive today, or he punched somebody. All this list, and this same list can be transferred to the police department. Now, The problem with the police department right now is I think they're probably just overburdened with files. But somewhere along the line, we have to set up a computer system that gives us these instant readouts of what's going on.
Based on fears, though. We got to be clear about that. Based on other people's fears, the fact this person hasn't done anything, right?
No.
Right? So we're.
I don't want to be on that list, and you don't either.
That's the Second Amendment is the only right that I know of where we can take it away, and then as a citizen we have the right to petition the court and get it back. But
right.
I mean, we don't do that with the First Amendment. How many people, talking is another thing, right? A lot of people out there say a lot of things. They write a lot of things that they probably shouldn't. Should we have to take a license to, get our right to the First Amendment? That's a license is another thing that I hear a lot with guns. They want qualified license. You should have to take a qualifying course before you have the right. And again, that's the difference. We're not talking about a car and a privilege. We're talking about the right to defend yourself, right? What do you think about the license idea?
Boy.
I'm going to push your buttons, Ricky. I'm going to hit the hard ones.
You pushed it. I've talked to quite a few people that gun people and people that don't have guns. And, I'm beginning to think maybe they're right.
Right.
You, for instance, know that you have to train your young kids to, how to handle a gun and all about hunting, and then they have to go on out and get a license.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can take those children along with you without the license if they're under, I think, 16, is it?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a bad idea. Boy, I tell you, I'm glad I'm not on Facebook. I'd probably get a load of information from this little conversation, but I don't know if it's a bad idea to have a permit or license, depending on what you want to call it, that says I own a gun or guns, meaning that anybody who wants to have a gun, fine.
You're talking about a registry then?
No, because a registry is actually, I've got gun number 54378. That's a registry.
Right.
This is I, Ricky Harrington, have maybe a gun, or I might have 100 guns with a cannon.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Right.
But I do have this permit that says that I can have a gun.
You know how to use it.
Right.
What do you think about license ideas, Rich?
Well,
as a non-gun guy.
I've never owned a gun.
Yeah.
I probably never will. I wouldn't be against it if it was sensible.
Right.
I wouldn't be against any gun law that was sensible. It's still not taking away the ability to get one and to defend yourself. So.
Right. Well, I think, and then that's what we're talking about. Now we're putting an age limit on the Second Amendment. Is it 21? Is it, at what point do we think you're responsible enough to have that for the public safety interest, right?
And I don't know if you meant to say what he just said, but he just said whatever all of us are thinking. It doesn't stop you from the ability to get a gun.
It doesn't, and that's the sense.
And my point is that doesn't stop what we've created here and what we're trying to eliminate.
Right. Well, I'm all for the education idea. I don't think we can mandate it on a right. This isn't a car, so I'm against the idea of making this part of, the right to bear arms. I think everybody has that at any age, to be honest. Now, responsible parents, I'm not going to let my 8-year-old go and buy a gun, right? All my kids have guns, but they really don't have guns. They're all my guns. Who are we kidding, right? Until they're old enough, and then I pass them down. That's how that works most of the time, I think, in the gun world. But I think we can mandate it on a educational platform. And Ricky, I've been pushing for over a decade here as far as getting hunter education in schools to do that. And literally that would alleviate that worry, at least, from, or that argument. Every kid, by the time they graduate high school and are legally old enough to buy a gun, they're going to have the hunter education course behind it. Because we already do have courses if you buy a gun today, most people, I think, want to go hunting with it. Correct. You have to take hunter education. That's a safety course. And Vermont's the exception, but most states, if you want a concealed carry permit, you have to take a course to do that. So there is training.
There is.
And again, the NRA, who's taking a huge hit right now, they're the ones behind all this. They're the ones that came up and formulated the background checks and got everybody coordinated and putting that together. They're the ones that are trying to get these safe and responsible gun owners, I think. So.
Yeah, the NRA has already spoke right up and said if any school wants any help in in making
Education.
educating the school, they're more than welcome to do it, and they'll do it free of charge. On your comment, this kind of goes, you were saying it's hunter education. I wouldn't want to give that permit or that license to anybody who doesn't have hunter education.
Right.
Because hunter education is a fundamental that says, why do I have this gun? Well, you're teaching your children that, number one, you never pointed at a human being. Number two, animals, they're not here to just be taken
Right, the science
freely.
behind it.
There's a reason we do what we do, but more importantly, this licensing gets it into their mind that guns aren't here just to kill, murder, and maim. Guns
Right.
are here for a purpose. And so when I go back to this permit that I'm talking about, right now, I don't need a hunting license to hunt on my property. I
Right.
don't need a license to shoot at targets on my property.
As a landowner. Right.
Right. However, when I leave that property, you can say, well, I'm not hunting. I don't need a hunting license.
Mm-hmm.
If you're carrying a long rifle with a scope on it, you probably are hunting, I'm guessing.
Right.
And most game wardens, if they thought that you were up to something a little fishy, they would actually write you up on the intent rule.
Right.
That says, I think you're intending to shoot something. So my whole point is that permit that I'm talking about would allow you, me, anybody else to own guns and to go anywhere as you want in the state of Vermont. Pretty much what you do now,
Right.
except for
You got the training.
you've got that training.
Right. And for everybody watching, please reach out to the governor. Governor Scott is actually on board with this. I've talked to him about it. The big kink in the works right now is the teachers union, of all things. It's a money issue. My theory was there's 1 million hunter education instructors that do this for free. We're trained, we're qualified, we know what we're doing.
Right.
We would jump at the chance to make a little bit of money and teach a course, right? It doesn't work that way with the teachers union. We need full training and full just to be part of the school system. So that's kind of a
Well, let's stop with that right there. We're talking about the teachers union. I think they're the biggest obstacle in front of the president's idea of arming teachers. Now, his idea, my idea, and anybody else who's really thinking about this, we don't want to force any teacher or any person, for that matter. I don't want to force Rich to go buy a gun.
You're not making
I don't
the
want him to
teachers
go use one.
carrying them.
Right.
Yeah.
I want, and I can guarantee there are teachers who are ex-Marine, who are ex-police, who
Right. Qualified.
who are they've had guns all their lives and love them, respect them, that would be happy to be a concealed carry and realize, because everybody thinks, well, the president's just putting on a show, but you think about it. When you went to school, wasn't there always that one or two or three teachers you say, man, I don't want to be in trouble because he's going to be the first one coming down the hallway.
Yeah.
And that's the one that you're probably going to have the concealed carry in.
Right.
Because he's not doing it for fame. He's doing it because that's
what he
just
does.
his makeup.
Oh, I love the idea. It might be the little old lady math teacher.
Sure.
You never know.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's what makes Vermont safe.
Right.
You don't know. 58% of homes have guns.
Yeah.
You're taking your chances as a burglar in Vermont State. That's even if you live in one of the homes that doesn't have a gun, you're safer because we can. Right. We've made us not a target.
It's the whole fact that the would-be's wouldn't know who's got the guns in most cases.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm proud to wear it on my sleeve. I've got a gun. I got dogs, and I think that's as much a deterrent as actually using that gun or having the dog bite you.
Right.
Just knowing it.
Right. Well, we're out of time already. We could have went a long ways with this. I'm absolutely positive. Rich, you want to say anything wrapping up? I mean, what do you think of the whole?
I just
whole
want to
thing?
say that it's not just about guns. It's about life in general, people in general. That it's so multifaceted and so far-reaching that we can't just focus on one thing. And the last thing I want to say is, please don't make this a political issue. We're divided enough, and we don't need to divide ourselves over something like this, because that's not going to help it. It's only going to hurt us.
All right, Ricky, closing.
I could close with a lot of statements, but Rich is right. this shouldn't be a political issue. You know, I'm open to hear any comments, any ideas, and I'm not sure there really is an answer to this problem. But I do agree with him in the fact that it's family. It's a lot of the issues we have stem from the breakdown in the family.
Right.
The
Society.
lack of fathers in a lot of cases. A lot of times it's the mother. Somewhere we have to rebuild the family. That I think will get us out of a lot of these issues that we're having today.
A lot of society ills, yes.
Yeah, and I agree. There you go. Hug and kiss your kids, ladies and gentlemen. That's the true answer behind this. And unfortunately, no matter what we do, no matter what we talk about, we're always going to have these heartbreaking, tragic incidences. Again, I don't think gun reform is the answer. Guns are part of this because we're either talking about disarming the public to stop it or arming somebody else to stop it, but they're a player in this, no two ways around it. President Trump comes up, we talk about Obama and the Democrats and what they want to do, so it is kind of integrated. But yeah, as people, we have to look at it as society and do a whole bunch of stuff. And thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope you do your part. Call Governor Scott, tell him hunter education in schools, good first step. Thanks for watching.